Today what we are going to discuss, we are going to discuss Java programming, and we are going to see that how a Java application, you can say full stack with front end and back end got developed. Okay, so the whole application, the way it is, so we will see what are the different components and all, and how we develop an application in general. So from beginning, initial point of Java, starting with Java variables and all, till the development of Java application. This is what we are going to do in this session today. Okay. So when you say Java, Java is almost an object-oriented programming language. Okay. So when we say almost, means that there are certain things in Java which is not object-oriented, as for example, the variables and all. There are things which are like goes in a traditional, functional programming languages. But in general, almost it is. So the first thing is, you can say that Java is an object-oriented programming language. Okay. So when you say that Java is an object-oriented programming language, then there are terms, right? Object-oriented, what it means. Okay. So in Java, almost every entity is treated as object. Okay. So almost every entity is treated as an object. Okay. Now object is a real world entity, you can say, something that exists. So there are two terms that comes when you say object. Number one is object and number two is classes. Okay. So let us give an example. As for example, let us talk about mobile phone in general, right? So uh, when just we say that the mobile phone, right? So it will, you cannot specify about which mobile phone we are talking about. Okay. Then when you say that, you say the model, when you say that who is owner of it, and then there is IMEI and all. If you will mention all those things, then it will become a real world entity. Okay. Real world entity means exactly identifiable identity. Okay. That okay. When we say provide the detail that this is a mobile phone, this belongs to from this company, this is the IMEI number is this, and it has touch screen and all. So when you specifically specify those things, and then it becomes, you are uniquely able to identify that particular object, then it says that it is object. Okay. Then you can say that it is an object. Okay. So in general, when you say the definition of it in general, so object in general, that it is a uh, like anything that has some state, that has some behavior, so that thing is called object. And when we say class, then it means that it is a blueprint of an object. Okay. Now let us go back, let us go to something like this. So let me now share. Okay. So let us start a new Java project. Java demo. Okay, and then within this Java project, I will create a class. Just So what what this class is, Java class is, this is a blueprint of what? Blueprint uh, using which you can create other object. Okay, so as for example, you say that the dog, as for example, okay, and then public static void main is the program kind of a driving function that is required to run a particular program. Okay, if you have done Java, then or any programming language, then you might have heard about this thing. Anyway, I'm sure that you might have done it uh, in general. Okay, so this is the program that is this is a class, that is dog class. Then what you want to do inside the dog class is that what are the different properties of dog, right? So dog has a breed, right? So from of which breed the dog is. Dog will have some age, right? So that is that is one of the property of it. And then dog will have some color. Okay, now here there are variables, right? So string is a data type. So in Java there are various data types: string, int, float. So those are the different data types we will see during the course of it. But in general, when you say breed, and when we say string, then breed is of type string data type, obviously, right? It's a uh, and age is numeric, so it's int data type, and then color is like that. So these are the variables that are related to that. Now what are the so you say dog has different you can say actions that dog takes, right? Based on that, so what it does, right? Dog uh, barks, right? So let us okay. So you say that dog barking, so this is one of the property of the dog. Now if we will run it, so it says the dog is barking. So overall, and similarly we can have more methods there. Okay, so as for example, another thing is, so dog can be hungry, so public void I haven't closed the parenthesis here, and this is extra. Okay, so now you can see the dog is hungry, as for example. So overall what it says that, okay, so now what it says that there is a class of class dog, and in that class what we have done, we have defined uh, some means properties of dog, some global properties, as well as some actions that a dog can do. Okay, now what you need to do, as for example, you have to, because unless you will not define it like this, right, so you cannot, as for example here we have done static. Instead of that, we will say dog d1. Okay, so d1 is a dog, and then you will say d1 dot and d1 dot hungry. Okay, so now what we have done is that previously we were using a keyword static, right? We have done public static void. Okay, what this means is that if you will use the keyword static, you don't need to create a variable to call that particular method. Okay, uh, so that is the use of static. Static, the scope is, you can say, the at the class level. Okay, so that is the static variable. So because we were calling a function in um, in Java. If you are not using keyword static, you cannot call a variable directly without using object, because as I said, object is a real world entity. Okay, so when we say barking, who is barking basically? So a particular dog d1 is barking, so that's why we have used this d1 here. Okay, so this is about object orient basic definition of class and objects. So now let us go back to the another thing here. Now as we can do one more thing, d1 dot, we can say breed is equal to and in this way you can have the variable defined with the particular object. Okay, now when we have talked about variables in general. Okay, so what are the different types of variable that mm, that is there as part of Java? Okay, so one of the variable is local variable. Okay, so let us go back to our okay, so we have seen object, we have seen classes. Okay, so object is a blueprint, classes is a blueprint, and object is, you can say, real world entity. Now let us start talking about the, you can say, let us talk about what are the different variable type that Java has. So one is local. Okay, local variable are those variables which are defined inside the class. Okay, then the second variable is instance. Okay, so instance variable is defined within a class but outside any method. Okay, so within class but outside method. Okay, and the third variable is the class variable. So class variable has declared within class and outside any method, that is same like instance but with keyword static. Okay, so local, there are three variables. We have local variable, we have instance variable, and we have uh, class variable. Okay, and when you can see, we have used the keyword. Okay, so when you say here, we have this right, like, as for example, we have seen this case, right? So this is when we were using this barking, right? So let us go back to barking, right? And hungry. Okay, remove it, and then we were getting this error, right? Say change barking to static. Now this became static. So here it is a not a variable, static method. Okay, and this is what declared within class but outside any method. Okay, so this is your um, class level. Okay, so this is about your basic stuff related to the uh, the variable type. Okay, let us move ahead further on that. The concept of object oriented programming. So the first concept we have seen, what is a variable, what is a class. Now let us talk about one of the most important term is constructor. Okay, so what constructor is? If you will see, the next term is constructor. Okay, as the name suggests, right, it is related to, so seems like something related to the something that constructs, right, something related to the beginning of it. Okay, kind of you can say skeleton, right, when you create something, then and when you begin something, right, so kind of that. So whenever you defined any uh, object, then by default the constructor is called. Okay, so it is a method that is mostly used for initialization purposes, and if we have any um, method within that constructor, it will be executed first. So that is what the constructor is, something that is it is a kind of a subtopic. So every class has a constructor, number one. Okay, so you can say every class has a constructor. That is one thing. Okay, so whenever you define an object of a class, right, so then in any case a constructor is called. Okay, and if there is no constructor explicitly defined, in that case one constructor, the main constructor, will be invoked. So that is what the constructor is. Constructor will have the body, and it is a kind of a default, you can say default method, or you can say kickoff method, something like that. Okay, this is what the constructor term is. Okay, now how to declare a constructor. Okay, so when you define a constructor, basically how to declare it, just we use the when you declare a class here, when you have declared a class, right, we have used the keyword new, right, so this is the way constructor is called. Okay, um, so whenever you instance, so now you will say d1 dot. Okay, public static. Okay, okay, so we have seen some basic stuff specific to what is class, what is object, what is constructor. I'm just going quick on these areas, the reason being, I suppose you might have seen these, heard about these terminologies, and might have you have um, uh, done uh, you had at least one programming paper throughout in your, but anyway, as part of this whole thing, just it is a kind of quick recap if you have done it already, or kind of a background if you haven't done it, at least related to Java, if you haven't got exposed to that. So for some of you these things might be repetition, for some of you these things might be if you are moving from, you have seen done programming in some other language than in Java, then it is kind of a change, kind of a syntax change and all. Okay. Okay, so we talked about these terms. Let us move ahead and further. Let us talk about one more term related to object oriented programming. Okay, the next term that I will like to talk about, let us move to some other editor. Note. Let us move to some other editor because like to see. Okay. So we have seen constructor, we have seen class, we have seen. Okay, let's talk about one of the term that is there, that is called um, interface. And we are going to see this thing in, in one of the end-to-end programming example, and we will uh, try to connect all these things together, right? At the end of that, when we will see, the end-to-end running example, and we will see how these things are connected together, how things these are getting used there. Okay, so what interface is? Okay, let us take an example that of, you can say, of traffic system. Okay, so traffic system, and world over there is in general, this is kind of a common, right? So there is a green, yellow, red, kind of a global standard across the world. Let us take an example. There may be exception or not, but what I mean to say that uh, there are certain things that is going to be true across. Okay, so with that the interface thing comes into picture. Okay, as for example, Reserve Bank of India gives common guidelines for all the banks, and all the banks have to follow those guidelines. Okay, kind of a compliance guidelines and all. Now the responsibility of implementation doesn't lie with Reserve Bank of India, because, or any kind of a regulatory bank, wherever you are, you can say forget about Reserve Bank, the regulatory bank that is there, that is regulating, and each country has its own regulatory banks. Okay, so the regulatory bank has some regulations, and that has to be followed across. So it gives the guidance for that, and it is the responsibility of all the banks within the within that country to follow it and to implement it. Okay, so similarly, if you have a traffic system, it is the responsibility. So there has to be uniformity across the world, if that is the requirement, and the implementation will not be there within the body of it. In these cases, the concept of interface comes. Okay. Okay. So now let us take that example and let us move ahead of implementing it. How to do it? Let us see.
Hello everyone, if you would like to access the remaining videos of this playlist of 50 plus more tools which are coming under DevOps, DevSecOps, SRE, DataOps, GitOps, etc. Kindly become our channel members by clicking on the joining button. You would have access to hundreds of playlists and 1000s of videos lifetime access with this membership. Enjoy.
Thanks for watching. Want to study further? Join our training programs today.